Hey guys, it's Kevin from the DELCO XC Podcast. Before you start listening to this podcast, I do want to give you a heads up. This podcast is very much unscripted. This is a podcast about your mind in training, in exercise, and preparing yourselves for everything that's going to be coming up this upcoming season. I understand if you don't want to listen to this one, but to me, this is probably the most important podcast that I've recorded in 4 years, because it really is about how you prepare mentally for an upcoming season, for an upcoming race, for an upcoming event. And I don't have all of the answers, and I know I don't have all the answers. But this one, to me, is probably the most important podcast I've recorded. I also understand that it's probably going to be the least listened to podcast that I've ever recorded. And I understand that. I hope you listen. I hope you learn something. And I hope you get ready for a great cross-country season. Because y'all, this sport runs DELCO. I believe in you, and I hope by the end of this episode, you start believing in you too.
2, 1. Who's got your back? I got your back. Who's got your back? I got your back. One heart, one soul, one team, one goal. We are
Gentlemen, welcome back to the DELCO XC Podcast. With you as always, my name is Kevin Key, and I'm going to bring up a different topic that I'm not usually bringing up when it comes to the DELCO XC Podcast, and that is the importance of a lot of things going into races. The biggest thing to me going into training, going into races, going into practices is this thing up here. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, which actually does exist, I'm pointing to my brain. My brain is the biggest thing that goes into this, because a lot of the times with this racing and with these strategies and with this sport in general, it plays with your head so much. And that's not just like, hey, the race, the training, the workouts, talking to my coach. These aren't the only things that go into play here, but it's everything else. Now, listen, there's pros and cons of everything. Like, I have already established on this show that I was not the best athlete on my O'Hara team. I wasn't even close to being the best athlete on my O'Hara team. Class of 2006 was not close to that. But what they would call me is they'd call me what you call the glue guy. All right. I felt very established as the glue guy, the guy who kept the team going, the guy that kept the team motivated, and kept us looking to our ultimate goal as a team. And sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes that plays a certain role, but it also messes up with here because you have a lot of personalities that you're working with. Now, I'm saying that I graduated in 2006 at Cardinal O'Hara for a reason. And that is specifically because when I was in school, the biggest thing that affected us was, hey, is DELCO Times going to cover this meet? Or let's look at the PA Mile Split forums. Yes, there were forums in which you would talk back and forth and you would chat with other people on Mile Split as like a chat room sort of thing, that kept things interesting for sure. Because, like, hey, what is the forum going to say about us? And I know there's a forum now. I think it's letsrun.com. That is a forum of talking about track and cross country, among other different things. That was the biggest thing that went into our minds, because Mile Split did not cover every meet, because not every meet was FAT. So your minds go a little bit different than our minds would. Because a lot of times with my training as a runner, I wouldn't push my regular season meets. I would make them more of a workout meet, and that was not covered on PA Mile Split, so you could never see that certain time. You can barely see any times up there from 2006 to begin with. That was the biggest issue we had. All right? You are in a whole other generation. Y'all, you're looking at Strava all the time. You're looking at different social media pages like Instagram and X and whatever else, TikTok. I know you're looking at these things. You're looking at Mile Split, which has everything on it. And I'll be honest, another problem is this podcast, because I know some of you want to hear me talk about you specifically. I know some of you would go and you listen to a preview episode that, I preview the seasons, I preview DELCO championships, and I know that sometimes that might get to you. And I'm going to tell you that in the sport of cross country and in the sport of track, those little things, those are minute details. And a lot of the times our goal is to go in with positive self-talk. And I know that is a tough thing to do sometimes, because in our training, we tend, especially if we're on Strava, to compare ourselves to other people. We tend to look at their training, we tend to look at our training, we question what's the difference, what's the big difference between that. And I know a lot of the times coaches put in a lot of effort to put different training sessions together, and I know that coaches talk to each other and come up with plans. I know that I've studied this sport well enough that I know, hey, this is what has worked, this is what continues to work, but not everything fits one person. It's not one size fits all. All right. But I also know that, hey, this is the maximum mileage that I want a boy to reach this week. This is the maximum mileage I want the girls to reach this week. And they do vary. And it's a scientific reasoning behind those varying factors. And I know a lot of times that we go into this and we look to compare ourselves with other teams or with other people. And I think a lot of times that isn't good for our own mental health. So let's just say this podcast I'm going to tell you is really off the cuff. I have no script for this. All right. I want to put it out there that your mind as well as your body means the most in this sport. How you go into these races, how you go into your workouts, how you mentally prepare yourselves. I have been teaching now since 2011. That's a long time as a teacher. I've been coaching since 2010 with a year or so off in between. I know within that time period, things change and we grow and we adapt and we try to grow to make sure that we are focused in on our positives and we are focused in on positive thinking. A lot of that positive thinking we call as mindfulness. And I know a lot of times when I say the word mindfulness to students, they kind of roll their eyes at me like, yeah, I'm positive all the time anyway. But mindfulness is more than that. Mindfulness is realizing that, like, I have a purpose and I want to make sure that my purpose is reached and is better. All right. A lot of times it's just going into things a certain way. As a guy of the 2006 team, I had many teammates who would go in and just like, oh man, I have to run today. Instead of saying, oh man, I get to run today. I'm blessed. I get to run today. I get to go out and have some fun with my friends. I get to have a good conversation. It might be a tough workout. It might be a distance run, but I'm blessed that I get to run. And sometimes I will tell you that I ran angry. And there were things that happened to me that made me go out and run angry. And sometimes running out those feelings definitely helps, but also like breathing and relaxing and calming yourself and knowing your purpose and understanding what you're gravitating towards and what you want to do, that's what's going to matter. Being grateful for your teammates, being grateful for the ability to run, being grateful to having the opportunity to compete and race. Like, that's what it's all about. I get that we are chasing PRs. All right. I chased PRs. I understand that. And I get that everything's on PA mile split. And that's what worries us, that everything is there. And Strava is there because it's telling us how fast our last mile or our fastest mile was. But know that sometimes it's just like knowing that you're blessed to be able to do this. I wish I can go out there and compete to the level that you compete at. I wish I could have done that as a kid, let alone an adult who still struggles to get out first sometimes or run on my own. You'll see me running all over the cross-country course, sometimes out of breath as a coach. But it's the idea that I'm able to get out there and go and push myself to different limits. Sometimes we're chasing PRs. We're not chasing performances. And one of the things that I was taught by my coach, Tom Kennedy, was that I always put the team before myself. Name on the front means a lot more than the name on the back, to quote the movie Miracle, which is another, like, I look into these things and that's just like, hey, that's important to me. That name, that jersey that I'm wearing is going to mean more, because then I could carry my team. And once again, I was not a varsity athlete. I was a JV athlete. I was one of the top JV athletes on the team, but I wasn't one of the best runners. All right. And I could tell you that a lot of times my PRs would not have come close to the PRs of my teammates. But I wasn't chasing PRs at one point. I was chasing performance. I was chasing team performance. All right. And I would go, and as a mindfulness activity, I would calm myself down. I would listen to music before a race. Now, we had CD players that I would have to carry around, and I have a book of CDs. I had to put a CD in. You have this phone that has everything on it now, audiophile was, but I used to have to carry CDs, and like, what am I going to listen to before a race? And that kind of helped me put myself into a certain space. But also it allowed me to get myself to calm myself down before races, before workouts, before warm-ups, because I know sometimes we look at warm-ups and like, why? We're about to race 5K anyway. You know there's more to that, all right? It is important to find something to calm us down before we get to others. And as I've already said, looking at Strava, looking at our performances in the past, looking at social media pages like TikTok and Instagram, even sometimes listening to this podcast, I know isn't going to be the best place for you to be. All right. I went to Cardinal O'Hara, which is a Catholic school, Catholic high school in Delaware County. And in that school, I am Christian. I am Catholic. And I would put my mindfulness activities into prayer. And there are a lot of things that I remind myself. And it's funny because I carry these things still with me. And one of those things that I would carry with me were different quotes. Now, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, which does actually exist, you'll see that there's a sign that I'm going to hold up right here. All right. And it is a Bible quote, Hebrews 12:1. Keep running the race that is set before you with endurance. This is in my basement. It continues to be in my basement to remind me to keep moving forward. There are other things that have kept me moving forward, and some of those things that keep me moving forward are movies. And I relate to movies. I relate to stories in general. It's one of my favorite things. So when it comes to mindfulness activities, a movie and a good movie quote really gets me through. And over the past couple months, I started to show my son, who is 7, the Rocky movies. And Rocky could really establish and be a great metaphor for any of us in any realm. The underdog in Rocky 1, the true underdog story in Rocky 1 and 2, and how he overcame different challenges to put in the effort, to put in the work, to push forward in his training, even when he faces different challenges, and keeping his mind right and having a coach in Mick to push him along to ultimately become a world champion. Spoiler alert. Then you have Rocky 3, Rocky 4, even the movie Rocky Balboa. I don't count Rocky 5. Actually, my son actually kind of skipped Rocky 5. All right, he didn't want to watch it because Rocky doesn't box. Spoiler alert. All right. And Rocky's on top. And he is the champion. But there are different things that happen to Rocky in that time period. Like he's given cushy matches to kind of build his ego a little bit more. And then he realizes that, hey, I can't be complacent. I have to keep pushing forward. This guy's tougher than me. This guy's stronger than me. I need to keep fighting. I need to keep pushing forward. I literally just watched Rocky Balboa, which is Rocky 6, with my son the other day. And there's a famous quote in Rocky Balboa where he's talking to his son. And a lot of you may have heard this quote before. It's one of my favorite movie quotes. Like I said, I live off of movies. And I live off these quotes and they stick in the back of my mind. And Rocky goes, let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward, how much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you got to be willing to take the hits and not pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you. You're better than that. I'm always going to love you, so no matter what happens, you're my son and you're my blood. You're the best thing in my life. But until you start believing in yourself, you ain't going to have a life. And that quote came to me in 2006. This movie came out and went with my teammates. And at that point I was a graduate, so it was really alumni coming together to just hang out again and to have a good conversation and see a good movie. And that line really pushed me. And I did look on Google for that entire line, even though I do have most of that line memorized. And that line just reminds me of this sport in general. Not everything is going to come out our way. We have to prepare ourselves for those moments in which it doesn't always come our way. We have to prepare ourselves for a next level, another level that we're not used to. And it plays such a terrible, a hard role in our mind because sometimes we just might not be prepared for it. I see your families at these meets. I see your coaches at these meets. And it makes me happy to know that you have such a great support system there. And the coaches are there to pick you up when you're falling down. That was my favorite part of the sport, was reminding us that, hey, you might be upset about this race, but you've got 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes to dwell on it. You got 5 minutes to think about it. You have 5 minutes, and then you need to let it go. This sport is tough. And if you start to change your thinking to positive thinking, you're going to start seeing positive results. A lot of times in my life, and what I've noticed in my life is when I put positive in this world, positive comes back to me. And I brought up Rocky Balboa for a reason. Because while I have watched this with my son and I continue to show him how to grow, because sometimes his first reactions aren't the best either. He's 7. I want him to learn that sometimes those reactions, these end up being our character. This ends up being who we are. And he got really into Rocky. I've had a Rocky Balboa poster on my wall as I head down to my basement since I moved into my house. Originally, I thought that this poster had the quote that I just read to you on it, because I was going to come up and I was just going to read it off the poster and show the YouTube chat exactly what this poster looked like. Instead, this poster has a different quote on it. This poster, which is a beautiful picture of Rocky Balboa on it, has another Bible verse, Timothy chapter 4, verse 7. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Keep the faith in your training. Trust yourselves. Believe in yourselves. I know it's very hard to do, but when you start putting positive into this world, you will get positive results. I posted a few days ago, I think it was 3 days ago, I shared a post from a Samantha Herricks. That's Samanthahierx. And I shared it on the Instagram account that is at DELCO XC Pod. And she kind of wanted to remind ourselves the things that matter the most is how we think and how a shift in perspective and the way we feel. And that is actually the influence for this podcast today. That shift in perspective can change the way we experience the same exact moment. I related exactly to what she posted, because I've seen athletes who finished a bad workout or finished a bad race, and they've completely changed the way they see themselves. I had an athlete who won DELCO championships in the 100-meter dash recently, who was chasing PRs instead of performances. And when she started to chase performances over PRs, when she started to realize what got her into this sport was the love of this sport, that's when things start to transition. Now I'm going to share a couple of the posts that Samantha has on here. Here's the Instagram page for those on the YouTube chat. All right. She posted that you have the negative thinking and the positive thinking. Negative thinking, I only PR'd by 4 seconds. Positive thinking, I just ran a lifetime personal best. Negative thinking, I have to run. Positive thinking, I get to run. Negative thinking, I have to prove my fitness in this race. Positive thinking, I'm grateful for the opportunity to compete regardless of the result. Negative thinking, everyone else is faster than me. Positive thinking, their progress doesn't take away from mine. For those who are looking, for those who are watching, you're going to see progress throughout this season. You're going to hear about how people can progress from their freshman to their sophomore year in the sophomore podcast, which will be coming out. Their progress does not take away from yours. Stay positive with yours. You have to also remind yourself the way you talk to yourself matters. It is cross-country season. You're going to have races that are going to challenge you. You're going to have races that don't match your expectations. You're going to have moments where you question your ability. Be careful what you say to yourselves in those moments, because eventually you're going to start believing in yourself. Seize the day. I really hope that you took a lot out of this podcast if you listened to it in full. This is really a topic that does mean a lot to me. And I am going to say, I know that sometimes I might be part of the problem with this podcast. And I understand that. And that's one of the hardships of taking this role, especially after like the lack of coverage you've received. I always wanted this to be a positive thing for people, but I also know that this could be a negative thing for people. And I want you to know that's never something I ever actually want for this podcast. I want it to be positive. I want to shine the light of special athletes in Delaware County and cross country. And it actually seems like I've moved on and people want me to cover more of the state of Pennsylvania, especially Montgomery County, Shipley. I'm looking at you. But no, the DELCO is my heart. Like, I am honored to be able to watch and cover athletes like you every day. I'm honored to get the opportunity to talk to some of you before, during, and after races. And I'm honored just to have that conversation with you or your parents or your coaches and continue to build that relationship. This is a positive mindset episode. You're going into a season, and I know it's going to be easy to compare yourself to other people. But in reality, this sport is about competing against yourself and helping carry your team to another level. You're going to see a lot of different challenges, and you're going to face a lot of different challenges. Continue to fight the good fight. Continue to fight in that race. Carry yourself to the finish line in any way possible, no matter what. Keep fighting the race. Keep fighting the fight. Keep finishing the race. Keep having the faith. Keep believing in yourselves. This is Kevin from the DELCO Cross Country Podcast, and I am signing off.